I think we're live. Let me just check over here. G'day everyone, we are in pre-show. Popping in for, well, it's not the usual day, I'm a day later, but I was actually busy yesterday, so I had to pop in today. So I'm just going to wait until everyone pops in. Let me just make sure I've got everything set. I think it's pretty well right. Yep, all the volumes are down and everything. So pop in and say hi in the chat once you get there. And then I'll see who comes in on board. I'm just going to make sure that we are actually live through here. Let me check. Oh, here we are. There's Ben. Ben's coming in. G'day, Ben. How you going? Ben will be in lockdown like I am as well. The funny thing is, this morning on the thing, it doesn't say how many are in the live chat, which is weird because usually it tells you how many are in the live chat. Yeah, that's odd. I'm not sure. It's really weird. I've got 2 thumbs up already. Now the stack's in there, but for some reason, like I said, it's not telling me how many are here. But let me just check who's here anyway. Let's have a look. We are in pre-show, guys. Now, if you don't want to watch all of this, there will be a timeline down below, so you can skip to whatever you want to watch later on. But I'm going to give this, around about 5, sort of 6, 7 minutes or so. So fire away if you have any questions. Excuse the cough. I haven't got coronavirus. It's just this dry cough that I get every year. I have been tested. For people that didn't know who I said last time, I was tested for coronavirus because I travelled from overseas, but it was clear, so I was fine. So Ben's here, Joseph's here as well. Barry is also saying morning. David Mark is saying, hey David. Wosley saying I'm in. Pamfax said, yes, you're live. Leslie said, hello David and everyone. Hi Leslie. Keith said, howdy from Houston, Texas. Joseph said, good to see you, David. Wosley said, 32. What does that mean? What's 32 mean, Wosley? Bruce says, hi from California. How are you, Bruce? Good to see you on here. Joseph, I'm seeing 32 in the chat. Yeah, I don't know why I'm not seeing that on the chat. That's weird. Let me just check on my phone. It's a bit odd, really. I'm not quite sure why it's showing how many are in the chat. Let me see if this brings it up. No. It's just weird. So you guys are seeing it, are you, on there? All I've got is 11 thumbs up, but it's not showing me. Let me make this a bit wider. That might be the problem. No. That's really odd. I wonder if it's a Safari issue. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's Safari. Let me try Chrome. I'm just curious to know. Oh, I can see it there probably. Let me see if that shows it. Live, concurrent view. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, so it's showing 46. Yeah, so it does. It shows it over there. Well, that's really weird because normally it shows it in Safari on the browser. But like you guys are obviously can see it, but I can't, which is a bit strange. Anyway, let's keep going with the intro sort of stuff. Where were we? Bruce, I read that one. Dave said, happy days, Tassie boys here. G'day, Dave. How you going? Dave, I haven't seen you for a while, I don't think. Keith said, lockdown here as well. We're locked down sort of everywhere. My wife's company has been stood down today as well. So Kerry works for a retail store, which is called Maya. It's one of the really big retail stores. For people in the US, it's probably like Bloomingdale, something like that. It's a very, very large retail store. Well, she's just been notified that they're closing down tomorrow for a month. So, yeah, it's affecting everyone out there, guys, that's for sure. We're not in full lockdown yet. We do have certain things closed and certain things open. But it's really only now shops that are still open that you can go to, but they're recommending that you stay home. But I do think over the probably the next few days, we're going to probably go into a complete lockdown, I think. Where's my mouse gone? Oh, over there. Lockdown in Canada as well. So are you in a full lockdown? Like I said, we're only in a partial lockdown at this stage. But we can only have meetings if, say, weddings have been postponed now. You can have a wedding, but you can only have 4 people, I think, or 5 people, which means the bride and groom, the celebrant, and then 2 people to sign the registrar, basically. So that's limited to that. We're only limited, I think, with less than 10 people if you're inside an enclosed area. So, but it's getting tighter and tighter. So I'd say fairly soon we'll be in full lockdown. We're probably lucky that we're an island and we have isolated cases. I suppose that could be the case. But then New Zealand went into full lockdown, I think, yesterday. I think we should be doing the same thing. Greetings from Carolina. The Panda says, hey David, g'day Panda, hope you're enjoying your new camera. Seen a couple of pics, they look great. Mirla said, New York. Mirla is from New York saying hello. Talking hello David. Jim saying greetings, all thumbs up as you enter please. Thanks for your time in doing the show. No worries, Jim. Good to see you in here as well. Mark said hello from Minnesota. Paul said hello from Charlotte, North Carolina. Brian's hello David as well. 45 now. Yes, we're going up. We're up to 60 now, so it's really jumping up. I don't know why my thing's not showing it there. It's a bit ridiculous. Aaron said, what's up from Philly on lockdown? G'day, Ike. Good to see you here. David said, hello, all stay safe. Ben said, I can't see it either, mate. YouTube app on the phone. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Normally you can see how many you have concurrently. I can see it in Chrome, though, on the live stream there, though. Hi, Dave. I'm social distancing, John said. Triple said, good thing I do hard alcohol photography. What's hard alcohol photography? Jim said, hello all. The Panda says, hey, Photomaniac. Casper says, just getting some energy back after 3.5 weeks. Well, Kerry now will be off for at least 4. She hasn't gone back to work since we did the US trip, so this is now around about 7 weeks, I think. So she's going to have a big, long time off work. Mark said, I live across a train station and see staff whipping down train doors and driver cabs. What does that mean, whipping down? Wiping down, is it, Mark? So they're just trying to keep busy. That's because they're so quiet. Is that what you're saying? Brian says, here in the Netherlands, it's on a not on a full lockdown yet. It's a matter of time, I think. Hey, David and Kat here with Alexander. Oh, you see, you got your cat, Alexander. Oh, here comes Kerry. I think she's bringing me a drink. Hello.
Hello. Happy anniversary.
And now it's our... Sit down for a second. It's our 39th wedding anniversary, but we've got a funny story to tell you. You can tell what happened, Kerry.
Well, David was out here setting up and I thought I was just scrolling through Facebook and checking out the memories. Thank goodness for Facebook memories. And it came up that it was our anniversary. Didn't even know what day it was.
Well, the funny thing is it's because... we have been so crazy with all of this lockdown and all of these sort of things that's going on. This is the first time ever we've both forgotten. And I just thought, thank God Kerry forgot, because if she'd come in and said happy anniversary and I'd forgotten she hadn't, I would have been devastated. But it's the first time we've ever forgotten, isn't it?
Well, we're not looking at the dates because I haven't gone back to work, so it's
so the dates have been irrelevant. Yeah, the dates have been irrelevant because for us it's been a big blur. Like we've had the holidays in the US and then we've come back and it's all been this crazy lockdown stuff. Kerry hasn't gone back to work, so the days have meant nothing, have they? Really?
No.
So it's funny. So 39 years.
39 years.
Yeah, today. I mean, I met Kerry. I think you were 14, weren't you? Yeah. So we've been together since we were kids. Which is amazing. Love her to death. So, cheers.
I'm still putting up with him.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh.
So, give me a kiss because I've got to talk.
Right. Bye. Have fun. Hope you're all staying safe.
Just let me see if anyone's saying hello first. How many years, Mark said? 39. Yeah, 39 years. Yeah, that's it. Mark said hey, Kerry, happy anniversary. Photomix says happy anniversary. I'll just see why these guys are just saying happy anniversary. So they're all saying happy anniversary there.
I can't read. I haven't got my glasses.
Ben said, great stuff, Kiri. Casper said, yikes, the Rona. What's Rona? How? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, it could be something else that's been on there. It had to have been. We're glad you're feeling better. Wow, David, 39 years. I'm coming up to 30 this year in December. Time goes so fast. It certainly does. You guys look good on camera. Or Kerry May. Hey, that wasn't social distancing, I know.
Well, we're not social distancing each other.
Yeah. That's about it. Happy anniversary to you all.
We're stuck in the house together.
That's Carol there saying happy anniversary.
Carol.
Yeah, Carol was lovely. We all got together in California as well. So thanks so much, guys. So Kerry's now going to nick off.
Oh, thanks.
Love you.
Bye.
Let me just go back to here just to see what people are saying. So it's Corona time. I've got my own lime. This is from my own lime tree. First time I've had limes growing on the tree, and this is the first year. So cheers, everyone. I should show the thing just because it's relevant. Stuff the virus. That's what I've got to say. And it's only 10 o'clock. It's only 10 o'clock, 10:16 our time. Kerry said, you're not going to have a beer, are you? I said, yeah, why not? She said, well, you've just cleaned your teeth. I said, oh, well. I love it. I will start the show in a minute, guys. I'm just catching up with everything. I mean, we're all stuck at home anyway, so what does it really matter? Let me just go down to where I was. All, if interested in tracking COVID-19, Jim put up a map there that you can sort of see what's going on. Hello from Alicia. Is it Alicia? In Colorado. Mark said, another day in distance, and this will become the norm for a while. I know it certainly is. Sid said, excuse me, I'm glad you enjoyed the US. I did. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I'll show you some pictures. Once I start the show, I'll just show you some other pictures that I've edited of Ike's workshop that we did over there. David said, happy anniversary. All this PDA, geez, I know. Everyone's saying happy anniversary. Corona, I love it. 000 said. No kidding, you will not be able to breathe, so be careful. I'm not sure that I was talking about someone else. You deserve a medal, Kerry. I love it. She does, putting up with me, that's for sure. Wow, 39 years, I'm coming up to 30. I read that before. You guys look so good on camera. Thank you so much, Panda. I love that. It wasn't social distancing. Everyone's saying congratulations. Thanks so much. Happy anniversary, great couple. Oh, thank you so much. Those little duckers. Sid Vicious. I think Rona was in a relationship with Corona beer and the virus. Mark, that's not how you brush your teeth. Oh, that's how you brush your teeth, Mark. I love it. Yeah, it is. Like I said, Kerry just said you've only just brushed your teeth, but oh, well, here goes. Thing is, after you drink a couple of these, you can't taste the toothpaste anyway. Oh, I love it. Rob said, happy anniversary, and Altric said, what's up? I've got some interesting stories to talk to you about today too, actually, which is good because it's been so quiet in the news front that at least today I'm going to have some interesting things that I can discuss with you, which is great. So let's get started with the show, and I'll come back after I've started the show, and I better put that down, actually. So show start is 14:06. 08. Oh, it's actually 11. Every time, 15. Let's go.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over. We can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide.
Welcome everyone. We've just had a bit of a pre-show. If I do cough like this, don't panic. It's just a dry cough I get a couple of times a year usually. Don't know why I get it. Doctor can't even answer why I get it. It's just one of those things. May even be a bit of asthma. I'm not sure. But we've got some interesting stories to talk to you today. Now, if you're not interested in watching every story, I will put down a timeline down below. So you can skip to whichever story that you like. It is my anniversary, so I'm 39 years with my lovely wife, Kerry. She just said hello. So she brought me in a Corona with my own limes. These are from my own lime tree. So cheers, everyone, and stuffed Corona. I shouldn't say that word. I'll get demonetized. Oh, I love it. And just to repeat it too, Kerry said she said, do you want me to bring you out a coffee? And I said, no, I'll have a beer. She said, it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you've just cleaned your teeth. And I said, yeah, that's okay. Oh, I love it. All right, so I thought I'd start today with showing you a few more images that I've edited from Ike's workshop. I am going to get around eventually to posting something about that, like a video. I've just been a bit busy catching up with everything else. But let me just show you these images that I've just come up and edited. So let me just bring this up. And I'll move this over here. So this is the first one that I thought I'd show you. This was really cool because this was lit by my Profoto B10, and it was lit with continuous light. Joe actually held it for me. Joe was my human light stand. He held it up on the right-hand side, so it was up above here, and it lit up the beautiful model coming through here. So, so there was no flash that was used in this at all. It was all done with continuous light and with ambient light in the background. It was sort of late in the day and it was just starting to turn dark, so the sun was just about setting. So I sort of wanted to make it look like that light was coming and hitting in from the side. So that's the first one. Another one from that series is this one. Again, that's the same thing. She was lit up by this by the continuous light, the Profoto B10. I love the red hat though. Like, I just love the red hat and the way the light's coming across the face. I really adore this photo, and I've posted these online as well. There's a couple of others that I've been posting. There was this one that I posted of Brooke. This was in the Valley of Fires. I did this with the 135. I think all these shots were with the 135 actually. I had to stand back a fair way to get this out, but this was lit with continuous, with natural light. So there was no flash used here at all. It was all continuous light. I think I may be wrong because they might have been, but I'll know when I do the film because I've got this all filmed and I'll be putting it on YouTube. I know Kerry was lighting up the girls at some stage, but I can't really remember. Another one here as well. This was Lisdian. This is Aaron's gorgeous wife, Lisdian. This was also in the Valley of Fires where the sun has set just late in the day. And you can see Lisdian here just standing on the rock. Kerry is just off the camera over here, just outside there, and she's lit up Lisdian with the Profoto B10. Now, this was with just the Magnum reflector, so there's no softbox. I often don't use softboxes anymore. All the other ones that you saw, like when you're looking at this one, there was no softbox involved here. This is hard light. I've really got into using hard light at this stage. There's just something about it that I love. It had the Magnum reflector on and I just love using it. It was the same with this one as well. It was all hard light as well. And this one of Lisdian was the same thing. So it also gives Kerry the ability to stand right away from the background. So I didn't have to edit her out of the background. I could just basically do that with that light on. Another one here which was just daylight. This was just shot with backlighting. I often do love backlighting. This was a 135 as well. It's lit up the beautiful model here as well. You can see that the face is nicely lit. I've tried to sort of balance I have exposed a little bit in the background because I've got to make sure that I can get the face with a decent amount of exposure on it as well, but I love that. I often love images where there's no contact with the model or wherever you're photographing. I love that type of look that's there. The next one is this one. Again, there is eye contact here though, but this was all with natural light as well. I'm really happy with how this whole series is going, and I can't wait to share the video, and you're going to be able to see it. You know, these were all with the A7R4, I think. I'll have to check. Yeah, that was with the A7R4. I'm pretty sure these all were A7R4. That's the A7R4, 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 yep. And A7R4, yep. So these were all with the A7R4. But really, really happy with how they've turned out. So stay tuned. The video will come up eventually. This one will be a separate video, which is Brooke and Jade. That'll be another video that I'll be posting coming up as well in the coming days. So let me just quit that. So before we start the show, let me just check how we're going in the live chat, and then we'll get stuck into the news stories. You got to gargle. I love, Jim said you got to gargle with that Corona or no. It might stop me having this dry cough. The worst part is when I go down the shop or whatever, I'm trying not to do this cough because they'll probably think that I've got coronavirus or something. It's horrible. I get it, like I said, I get it 2 times a year. It drives me nuts. Bruce said 39 years, awesome. Most everyone else is saying happy anniversary, love it. Casper said kids, yes, we got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. You're getting frisky tonight, I love it. You guys are blessed and your trip was superbly timed. I know, how lucky were we with our trip. Jim said give Kerry a twirl, I love it. Let's have a look. 39 years, awesome. Yes, it is. Just checking things down here. Things are tense. Guy walked into a bar, asked for a Corona. He was flogged to within an inch of his life. Happy anniversary, Rob said. Altric said, what's good? Photomic. He's talking about Photomic there. Sid said, David, you got to gargle with that Corona. Here we go. I love it. I thank goodness for a second I thought you had both the Corona and Lyme disease. I love it. Keith says, love that 135 GM. I know, how good is that lens, honestly. It's I can't put that lens down. I really cannot put that lens down. You guys see the Profoto A1 price was reduced down to $600. Yeah, well, it sort of had to be, Ike, though, really. I mean, you think about it. It's way overpriced for what it is. I mean, look, you do get what it is, and I think it is leagues above what the Godox version is, but it is way more expensive. But that's the original A1. That's not the A1X. So that's something you've got to get rid of, think about. So they probably are trying to get rid of their older stock. It's like everything, though, you know. You do always pay a price for the Profoto gear. Iron Brown says, g'day, mate. I see a used Sony A7 III in good shape for $1,400. Wow. That's a bargain, isn't it? You're going to get some bargains at the moment, that's for sure. 600 Photomiac, that's a great price. Is that at B&H? Altric says, walk away from the light, Photomiac. Woohoo, when is the 7180 news up? Well, it's not really that much news. It's just talking about the lens itself and showing some pictures like comparison and sizes, and just talking about a review that was out there and how I thought that matched what I used. Altric Photomic says, well, I would start at the top and work my way down, so I would get a B10 plus first and then get a B10 and then an A1. Yeah, the B10s are amazing. It's still the best purchase of anything I've probably ever bought. I think David meant the D1. That's the one I want. Sid said, David, that 70 to 200 Sony G Master is literally in another world. Best portrait lens according to you, 135, definitely. I've got no doubt that the Sony 135 is the best portrait lens out there. And that's it. Will you make a review of the Fuji X-T4 versus the Sony? Probably not, because I don't know if I'll be able to get one. I mean, I'd love to get one, but here in Australia, it's very, very hard to get gear like that. See, like people like Ike and stuff can occasionally lend stuff from B&H and things like that. Like, that's what happens. So they'll lend them the gear over a period of time. It's very hard for us Aussies to get that type of gear here, but someone may have it that could lend it to me or something like that, then I may get to do a test of it. I'd love that if I could. All right, so let's get stuck into the stories today, because God knows if my voice might end up going with this stupid cough that I've got. Let me just put down here. What time are we on? 25, 26. 25, 26. Oh, it's come up now. It's showing me how many's watching now. All right, so let's get started with Sony news and rumours. This is the first story today. Now, let me just see. I might have to move this. All right, so this is interesting because and this does not surprise me at all. Let me just mark on here so that we don't get lost later. I'll know where we're up to. Langston just said, I would get the B10 that David Oastler had here in the US just for the constant light for run and gun shooting. Yeah, it's changed the way I shoot, that's for sure. So this is interesting. This really matches. Before I sort of talk about the story, I'll mention what I mean by that, or what I mean by that was, I did say that I think this is just not Sony. This is all manufacturers are going to have the same issue. They're all going to be held back for the next 12 months probably. It's going to take a long time before Sony are going to be able to, or anyone is going to be able to catch up with the supply constraints that's happened over the last 3 months, really, if you look at it. And now Sony have just put out an impact statement about it. So, and I think this is going to be the case. This is why I don't think we'll see cameras like the A7S III, even the A7 IV, or really like even probably Canon with the new EOS R cameras are probably going to be in the same boat as well, that it's all going to be held back. So this is what this story is about. And basically what they're saying here is that has had no impact on sensor production, but supply chains are unstable. And there's a whole article, I'm not going to read through the whole article, but there's a whole discussion about this, talking about that the sensor division hasn't been damaged. Well, they probably have that many in backup anyway, that they've probably got stacks of stock that the sensors division's not going to have any suffering at all. But it certainly seems that it's affected other parts of the business, like, obviously your camera parts, all these sort of things, the bodies, lenses, even your internal components and everything else are all going to be constrained in the coming months. Excuse me while I cough. So I think it's going to be, it is going to be an issue for the foreseeable future. And I think this now probably has put a stop on Sony releasing anything in the immediate future, because they're going to be battling to get the stuff out. So that's one real bad issue about this. And they're saying that the sensor division's fine, and like I said, they've probably got stacks of these things on stock anyway, but it's other things that are out there. Like I said, that the camera, even though China is starting to come back to work now, there's another thing where they're talking about that Thailand has been closed down, I think Malaysia have been closed down, so that there's stacks of places overseas that they would use for the cameras, that it would probably hold it up. Now, even though something says it's manufactured in Japan, say for instance, doesn't mean that they haven't got components from, say, China or Malaysia or Indonesia. They could come from anywhere, little components that come inside of that. So it's going to be a real issue in the future. So, look, we may... G'day, Brett. Good to see you here. We may get perhaps some announcements. I mean, Sony may give us some announcements that they'll say... let me just move that so that... Oh, no, we're right. I can just move a bit. Sony may give us, say, an announcement of impending, this release that's going to be coming out. But I don't think we're going to be seeing anything actually released this year. I'll be very, very surprised. I mean, most people, our government's talking about that this is going to last 6 months. And it's only just started in a lot of other countries. Remember, I know China... is now starting to get back. Well, that's what we believe. I mean, who knows really what the truth is, but they're saying that they're starting to get back. But now you're starting to see it hit other areas like Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia and India. There's all these other places now, the US, where it's just starting to really hit now and become an issue. The UK. So it's going to be months before we're over this side of things. So, and the other aspect is too, I think anyone would be silly to release anything at the moment, because who's going to buy it? Like seriously, at the moment, when you're losing that many jobs and that many people are becoming unemployed due to this virus, or their work's on hold, like their pay has stopped, who would be really... I certainly as a business would not be releasing something now, because you're going to lose money on it. It's not going to have the impact that it normally would. Like I said to you before, that movie theatres, they've stopped releasing movies at the moment. Musical artists have stopped releasing albums and things like that due to the fact that money's not there. People are saving their money to survive, basically. They want to put food on the table. They want to pay their rent or pay their mortgage. So they're certainly not going to be thinking about purchasing camera gear. That's what I believe anyway. There's two ways of looking at this at the moment. It could be a great time, which is horrible. I mean, I hate to say this, but it could be a great time if you wanted to pick up something cheap secondhand, because a lot of people are going to be desperate for money. I mean, I've got stacks of stuff that I want to sell, but I'm holding off at the moment because I think the prices just won't be there and I'm going to lose money. So, I mean... I'd like to say potentially get rid of my 70-200 f4 for the Tamron that's coming up. But I'm not sure if now's a good time to put it up because, who's got money out there? And everyone's going to want a bargain. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this regard. And I'd love to know in the chat too whether you think, that I'm right on this. But I think it'd be a mistake for Sony to release anything at the moment. And in fact, I think it would be a mistake to release for Canon to release their new R series cameras, the R5 and the R6. They have talked about them, but that's fine, but they're not released yet. So I think if I was Canon, I'd hold off on those releases as well. There's no way I'd be... it's good to do the announcement because at least that gives a little bit of excitement. But to go from the announcement to the actual releasing of it, where it's in the stores and then they need to make money on that gear, is a different matter indeed, And, I think camera sellers are in real trouble. Like the shops are basically all going to be in lockdown. Online sales, who knows how long online sales can go, because once deliveries stop, and if you go into full lockdown, then also deliveries stop. So... yeah, it's an interesting scenario, and I just think Sony are probably just sort of not jumping the gun, but they're just getting ahead of things here and explaining to people why they may be held back, I think. And that's what this whole story is about. They're saying the sensor division's fine, but even Apple the other day said that they think, well, from what I read, was Apple may delay the new iPhone announcement by 4 months. So it's even going to hit in that area. So... even though Sony has a lot of sensors, they may find that they're just not going to sell them, because, like I said, who's going to be buying this stuff at the moment? So it's a pretty interesting scenario. So I want to open up the chat just to see if you guys think that's pretty well fair, what I'm saying, or you disagree. That's where Langston said too, I would get the B10 that David Oastler had here in the US for the constant lighting and the run and gun shooting. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, like I said, I think the B10 is the best purchase I've ever made in photography. I really do. I love it that much. Being able to go from flash to continuous light, and then also balance that continuous light as a run and gun shooter is just amazing for me. And the people that were with me in the US know that because they saw me use it. Pop said he used the Fuji X-T4, I think it was, in London, and he liked it. What's your opinion on the Sigma Art lenses? Are they compatible to... Yes, boy are they, yes. I mean, I think the Sony 2470 is better than the G Master 2470. I don't think it's a competition. I think it's way better, in fact. So remember, you're talking about Sony G Master lenses now being well, they're not old, but they're starting to get more on the older side. The Sigma lenses is much more modern and much more advanced in the way that it's built, and probably the lens coatings, everything else is much better on those lenses now. Sony are due to probably update those lenses. There's 3 lenses I can just say straight off the bat that should be looked at. The 24-70 G Master should be looked at. I know I can't remember who mentioned before that the 70-200, they love it. Yes, it's a great lens, but I can guarantee that when Sigma bring out a 70-200, it will probably almost certainly beat the G Master. So the G Master at this stage, they really could do with updating the 24-70. I'm not saying they're bad lenses though, guys. Don't take that. They're not bad lenses at all. They're amazing lenses. It's just that they're being beaten by these newer lenses. So if you look at Nikon, how Canon have worked, they'll always have version 2, version 3 of those 24-70, 70-200, etc. You could put the linear motors in the 70-200 and the 24-70. There's a lot of things that they could do with those lenses. The optics obviously could be improved now. So I think you'll probably see, once all this virus stuff goes out, eventually Sony will bring out a 70-200 version 2 and a 24-70 version 2. The other thing that could be improved too is the 85. The 85 1.4 could also be improved now into a version 2 as well. It should have those linear motors of the 135, for instance. And if you look at the sharpness, compare, although it's a 1.4, but if you compare the 135 to the 85, the 135 is way sharper. I mean, the 135 is nuts in how sharp that is. But see, that's a modern lens. That is a current modern lens. So, they certainly could improve. So I'd say yes, if you're talking about Sigma, they're easily up with anything that Sony have got. Tamron are as well. They're getting better and better. The 70-180 that I used was super sharp when I tested that at WPPI. And the other advantage too with the Sigma obviously is they're half the price of getting a GM. So you could almost buy 2 lenses for the price of buying 1 GM. It's something to think about. Mark said the 135 GM resolves sharper than the 90 macro. The 135 is incredible. It's unbelievable. For those people who have good color grading skills, now is an amazing time to make a bunch of presets. Go back through your images, recolor them, and update your looks. Loads of time now. It's certainly a good time with the virus, obviously, to be doing things like that, learning, doing things that you've always wanted to do for ages. It's a great time to be doing those sort of things, that's for sure. Mike said the Canon R6 will be my video camera next year. 4K 60 frames per second, probably 2000. I'm not sure what that means. The Canon seem to be doing a really good job, and I think they actually have now finally woken up. I think the R5 and the R6 are going to be really, really good releases. But like I said, I don't think we'll see them probably released in numbers this year. Photomiak said the R6 might be the low light champ for Canon at 20 megapixel for the sensor. It looks really good. That Canon R6 also looks really good. I might talk about that later on next week or something with Aaron and those 2 cameras again. If we start seeing new inventory rolling through before spring, it'll be I'll be shocked. So will I. Yeah, I really will. G'day, Brett. Paul said new camera releases might coincide with rescheduled Olympics, so not a big loss. Yeah, and remember that is another point as well. The Olympics now they've been postponed, and they're now saying that they're going to be in the summer of next year. So, yeah, I mean, who knows? They may now, I think the D6 now has been put back on hold due to the virus and stuff like that. So Nikon probably now won't be in any hurry at all to re-release that or get that off the ground. The Olympics will also have an impact as well. Where were we? I think we were down here. Chinese basketball team has started practicing again. Mike said, Photomiak, I think also it will be a 20 megapixel 1 Mark II 3 sensor. Yeah, probably. The used camera market is booming right now for people selling their gear. I know, for a low price, and that's why, look, if you're after the gear, it's probably an amazing time. But if you need the money to sell, it's not a good time, because you're not going to get good money for anything you sell at the moment. That's why Trevor said this, and it's so true. Don't sell anything right now, and that is a really good point. Looks for another Blackmagic pocket camera, Langston said. Mark said, true, releasing anything right now is useless. Mike said, this year I'm not going to buy anything, I don't think. I don't think I will either, Mike. I mean, like I said to you, I'm always honest with you guys. My business has taken a massive hit, and probably for 6 months at least. And now that Kerry is also being forced out of work, luckily she's got holiday leave owing to her, so she'll get paid for a little while, but who knows how long this is going to last for. So I certainly won't be buying anything in the foreseeable future either. Mark said, we are just about all a bunch of unemployed people. I know. It's true, Mark, we are. You've got to stay positive, though, and I'm still staying positive. I mean, I've got my health, even though I'm coughing away, but I have got my health, and my family's all safe. So really, I suppose at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. But yeah, it certainly is a horrible time, and it's going to be tough for probably the whole of this year, I think. Just when the virus just stops, things aren't just immediately going to go back to normal. That's for sure. It's going to take a period of time. Trev said, if camera manufacturers want to do anything in the interim, they could push out firmware updates. Yes, please, Sony, give us that stupid... I haven't got my cameras in here. Give us that... It's not stupid, it's lovely. Give us that colouring of the focus, like you've got in the A9 II and the A9 now and the A7R4, where you can change the colour of your focus, your little square box. Give us those sort of things. Give us a firmware update to keep us happy. I think that would be an amazing move by companies at this stage to do that for us all. And it could be something that really doesn't cost them much at all, but it would keep people happy in the meantime. So I agree, that would be a great thing to do. Brett said... people are buying second cameras and lenses over new anyway. Second hand, yep. I say announce it, hold it back, shipping date to stockpile. Yeah, that may be what happens, Altric. That could be the things that they end up doing. See, the other thing too is it's tough at the moment to even release anything or even announce anything, because there's so much going on at the moment in the news cycle with the virus, people getting unemployed, all of these sort of things that companies will be reluctant to announce anything because it may just get lost. I mean, you may say announce something like Sony may announce a camera, and then there could be this amazing announcement that comes out on the social media or somewhere for one of the politicians do, or someone that announces something, and that news then just gets swamped and left in the background. So you've got to be very, very careful about this, because remember, the whole of social media is reliant on getting hits. And if the hits suffer, your announcement does as well. And that's something that, they may not even want to announce anything. Sid said, you're 100% right. Delay. No money to be had now. I would say wait, David, especially if you don't need the money. Langston says, yes, but what does the QA infrastructure look like to actually push these updates? Well, that's interesting too. You're talking about, have you got the staff to do these firmware updates? Here in India, we are forbidden to go out until the 15th of the 4th. Here at the hotel where I'm living, we are 3 persons and a staff of 20. The staff is from the whole of India. No one can leave or check in. Yeah, it's so bad. I know. I completely understand that. Dead right, David. I reckon more like 1.5 years. Yeah, it's going to take a long time to recover, that's for sure. Langston said, that's what made me a believer in the Pro Photo, David Oastler, seeing it in person. Yep. Once you see that Pro Photo B10 in person, you understand how revolutionary that light is. me just check what else is there. Sigma art glass is outstanding, just big and heavy. Yeah, it is, and that's one thing you do have to understand. The Sigma stuff is really heavy. Built like tanks. Aren't the G-Master a few years old? Yeah, they are only a few years old, Basil, but they're based on the Sony A-mount designs, I think. That was the issue with those lenses. I think they're based on the Sony A-mount. If you look at now how Sony have just released, the new linear motors in like the 400 millimeter and the 135 GM, that you've got those new linear motors that are inside them and things like that now, that there's definitely been improvements. And remember, a few years is a long time in technology-wise, and that's why they're being beaten by, say, lenses like the Sigma lenses. That 2470 is incredible. Jerry's, I used that when I was in the US with Jerry, and it's an incredible lens. And half the price. Let's not forget that either. G'day, Cliff. Mike said, Ike, are you going to switch from Nikon to Canon this year? Ike said, I do hope to get my hands on the R5 or the R6 when they come out, but only for YouTube videos. Why aren't there any 1.2 lenses for Sony E-mount? I don't know either. There are, but there is high. I'm even going to talk about one today. There is ones that are, can open up to 0.95, but nothing native for Sony. Like Sony, they will bring one out eventually. I think it's just at this stage that Sony are just trying to manufacture enough stuff to keep up, and eventually it will happen. And they've said that before, that they wanted to do an f1 or an f1.2 lens. We just haven't seen it yet. It will come eventually, though. There's no reason why they can't do it, put it that way. Jim said, I think the first GM lens was the 70 to 200 and 216. Yep, so that's a reasonable time in photography terms. Sid said, the big push for 8K is misguided because who will have the bandwidth or computer to run it? The 85mm came out the same year. Let's just keep going down. FotoMX said, Sigma makes a 35 1.2. Oh, yes, I forgot about that, and that's amazing. Michael had that when we were in the US. That is a beautiful lens. The Sigma 35 1.2 is incredible. I love that lens. And there are manual focus 50 0.95. Yeah, there are lenses out there, that's for sure. I forgot. Thanks, Ike. I forgot about the 35, actually. Jim said, for David and Kerry's 39th birthday, give a congrats and a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Jim. I'm happy I was able to sell one of my A7 III for $1,700. Wow, that's a good price. Mike said, David, at the end of the year, you can do a show how many gear you sold for food. Yeah, I might be doing that in another 4 weeks, Mike. Coloured focus frame. Yeah, that's what it was. Thanks, Torben. I can apply to get a 10-year supply of Vegemite if I sell my gear. I love it. Not buying any more gear till I have a year's salary in savings, so never. Trev, Mark said you're right about the linear motors on the 135, 200 to 600 and the 24 GM. Trevor said, when do you think manufacturers will start to reduce prices? By virtue of the state of marketing, they'll have to, or carry a massive loss. It's going to happen. I mean, look, it's going to be interesting. I think they're all trying to hold out at this stage, but sooner or later, manufacturers are going to have to do that to encourage people to spend. But you might find that that doesn't happen until things just start to pick up again. Because at the moment, no one's got any. It wouldn't matter how much they reduce the prices down, probably at the moment, no one's got money. So that's probably one of the issues with this at this stage, is that, Sony may drop hundreds of dollars off their cameras, but if you haven't got the money to pay for that, it doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. So that's something that you have to think about in that regard. MJ says, hasn't Sony claimed they've future-proofed the GM line? Yes, they did, because it can resolve up to the GM, up to the A7R4. But remember, that means it can resolve that, but it doesn't mean that it's as sharp as it could be. It doesn't mean that it focuses as good as it could. Like I said, if you've got the 135, you'll know exactly what I mean. When you watch how that focuses and feel how it focuses, there's nothing like it. When you look at how sharp the 135 is, you understand that, boy, have they come a long way in the last few years. So those lenses could be improved. Now remember, yes, they are saying they've future-proofed them, but they could definitely improve them, and the Sigma 2470 is a perfect example of that. The Sigma 35, which I'd forgotten about, the 1.2, is a perfect example of that. That lens is unbelievable. It's by far probably the best 35 that's available for Sony right now. So, Sony could definitely improve their lenses, that's for sure. There's always... Don't get stuck in this, you can never improve them, guys, because like I said, Nikon and Canon are up to their version 3s, I think, of the 70-200. I know Nikon is, I think. So, there's always room for improving these lenses. I mean, just because you've bought a G Master 70-200 and 216 doesn't mean that that's all Sony are ever going to do with the 70-200. That's a flawed thinking. They'll want people to upgrade. They'd want people that have the current 70-200 to upgrade to a new 70-200 GM. If you got a sharper GM 70-200 that also had the linear motor of the 135 or the 200-600, that'd be a massive improvement. So, it's just something that will happen. It will definitely happen over time. Let me just stick down here just to see where we're up to. Jason said, I'll get slightly triggered whenever people ask for 1.2 lenses. There are plenty of videos showing there is little to no difference between 1.4 and 1.2. It's not like 1.4 to 1.8 is very obvious. Yes, but Jason, there is a reason why you want fast glass. It's for low light. If you are, say, shooting video, and I shoot a lot of receptions and things like that, to have the ability to open up to 1.2, say for instance you were doing speeches or something like that in a really low light environment. I particularly like to use ambient lighting, and even in stills photography now. I particularly like to use ambient lighting and just use some constant light, like my Profoto B10, to light up that background. Now, to have a 1.2 is a big difference to 1.4 if you're dealing with the amount of light that can get into the camera. It means you use less ISO. So that can be a big deal. Now, I know there's that you can then say, well, but then everything will be out of focus. But it's not, because if you're a distance away from your subject, everything is still in focus. It only really matters if you get close to your subject. Like if you use a 1.2 lens up close to, say, a face, one eye could be in focus and the other one won't be. But if you're 5 meters back from that object, then your focal distance changes completely, and then everything basically is in focus. So the faster the glass can be an advantage. Like when I had the Panasonic GH5 and I used to use a 0.95, I think, lens that I had on that one, I'd often open that wide open, but be far enough back that everything was in focus. But to have the ability to let all that light in made a difference. So it does make a difference. And that 35 1.2 that Sigma have got is absolutely brilliant. It's as sharp as. Where else were we? Let me just see down here. I'll just go to the bottom because I want to go into the next story. I think Nikon is actually on version 4. I thanks, Ike. I wasn't sure. I knew they had a version 3. I wasn't sure if they had a version 4 of that already. I wonder if they have a trade-up program. You never know, they may. Will Canon open their RF mount for other lens companies? Well, I think they should. I think it's a bit of a flawed argument to stop that. It probably will happen, or it's going to get reverse engineered and the Chinese will do it anyway. Brett said, the problem now I've noticed is that lenses are losing value in resale when it shouldn't. Not like the camera body though. Yep, they are. Everything's losing value, particularly at this stage. So yeah, it's bad. Hero said the bokeh gods love 1.2. They certainly do. All right, so let's go on to the next story. It's talking about Sony splitting up its camera division. 5450. So this next story, this is interesting because this was talked about for quite a while. Last year, I think it was last year, I mentioned about this, that I think it was one person, I can't remember who it was. Does it mention it in here? No, I don't think it does. There was one of the big shareholders wanted to split off the sensor division from the camera division last year. And it was all knocked back at that time. But it looks like it's now happening. It's happening anyway. So it's saying Sony spins off camera business into a separate company. And what they've done is they've isolated, basically, what they're saying is that they're going to have the changes will take place on April the 1st, and no, it doesn't seem like it's an April Fool's joke. In a press release, the Sony parent company outlined the plan to broad strokes, explaining that its imaging products and solutions, home entertainment and sound, mobile communication businesses would now be run under a new name. So it looks like they're splitting the whole company up. Now, I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing, really. I don't think it's going to make any difference, to be completely honest. But they're saying we don't know exactly what, if any, impacts this will have on Sony's imaging division. Restructuring like this happens all the time, often with little or no effect to consumers. But such a major structural change from one of the biggest camera manufacturers is noteworthy, to say the least. So it looks like previously, it was all under the one business umbrella, whereas now the sensor division is going to be different to, say, the camera division compared to, say, the electronics division, which would be like PlayStation and et cetera, et cetera. What this does do, I suppose, if one company or one side goes bad, like say, for instance, the camera division went bad, it's then not going to affect the Sony PlayStation division or something like that. I think that's what they're doing here, is having that ability to isolate each company away from each other. So it's just an interesting scenario. Like the sensor division obviously is very, very profitable. If something did ever happen to the Sony camera division, well, then that now is not going to affect the Sony sensor division. So, you know, it's interesting, and I just thought I'd share that just to talk about it. If you have anything to mention about that, stick it in the chat or put it down below. I'm going to keep going because I'll probably end up losing my voice with this cough. All right, so the next story. Yeah, so any opinions about that, stick them down below, guys. I'd love to know your opinions about that. 5740. This is quite good because this may interest people that shoot APS-C. Because this Mark, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, Al Hadaf, I think it might be, or something. He's put out a list of what he says are the sharpest lenses for the A6000 series cameras. But just to sort of explain a couple of things first before I go through these, it focuses only on the resolving power of the lenses. So they're talking about the sharpness. Optical sharpness is between 5.6 and f8. At f11, diffraction is already visible, they're saying in this. So they're probably rating it between 5.6 to f8. And they're saying also many other criteria needs to be considered before purchasing a lens. AF accuracy and speed, bokeh, background blur, color rendition, chromatic aberration, resistance to flare, and distortion, etc. So they're basically saying that, look, this is not the be-all and end-all of everything about these lenses, but all they're talking about really is sharpness. So that's, before anyone carries on talking about anything else, they're just talking about sharpness. Now, the interesting thing here is, let me just see, can I get that to come up? No, I don't think I can. I had a thing I could zoom up. What was that? Oh, it's Option Z. Oh, there we go. All right, so let me just come here. Let me reduce this down. Let me just see if this works on this. Yeah, it does. So what they're saying here is that the outstanding lenses, so that there's only one actually in the outstanding lenses that are shown, and that's the Sigma 56 1.4. And I've used that lens and it's incredible. I've found the Sigma lenses for the APS-C cameras are just brilliant. I'm using the Sigma 35 1.4 now. I think, I'm pretty sure it's 1.4. Yeah, it is 1.4. Sigma make brilliant lenses for the APS-C cameras, and in fact we're lucky to have them because they're reasonably priced and they give great quality. So the Sigma 56 1.4, they're saying that's the outstanding one. So if you're after sharpness, that is the ultimate lens that you can get if you're using the A6000 type series, or even if you're shooting APS-C on full frame cameras, that's going to be a really, really good lens on that as well. If you're dealing with excellent, the lenses that they're talking about here are the Sony 16 to 55 2.8. That's a new lens, so that's excellent. The Sony 70 to 350 f 4.5 to 6.3. Sigma 16mm 1.4. So that's what I'm using right now to do this broadcast. So they're saying that's excellent as well. Another one is the Sigma 30. So you can see how good Sigma are if you're talking about sharpness of lenses. Even the 30mm 1.4 art lens is rated as an excellent lens. And the Samyang 50 1.2 is also rated as an excellent lens as well. And the Samyang 85. So that's really good as well. You've got a couple of the cheaper options from Samyang as well. Is it always Laowa? I can never pronounce it. Laowa 99mm is also mentioned as excellent, and also the 65 macro. The very good list is the Sony 16 to 70 f4, Sony 18 to 35, Sony 18 to 110, the Samyang 8mm, the Samyang 10mm, and the Samyang 21 and the Samyang 35. I'm not going to keep going through all of these because I'll put the links down below and you can have a look. Just looking at good is the 10 to 18. I use that lens all the time and I'm quite happy with it. Yes, it's not excellent, but it sort of backs up what I've sort of found with using it, that it is a really good lens. The 18 to 55, the 18 to 105, I love that lens as well. That's a brilliant travel lens on the A6400 or A6500. Sony 24 1.8, I had that and loved it, but I sold it because now I've got the 16 to 1.4 lens there. The Sony 35 1.8 and the Sony 50. Let me just go down to the bad though, because I'll show you what they're saying is bad. Is the Sony 16mm 2.8. Sony 18 to 200, Sony 20mm 2.8, Tamron 18 to 200, Artesian lens, they're the 7 Artesian lens, 25mm, and Lens Baby, etc. And there's a couple of SLR Magic lenses there as well. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting, I should have scrolled down actually, where it was saying bad. There you can sort of see the bad ones through here as well. So it is interesting, but what sort of comes out here is how good Sigma lenses particularly are. Tamron, you can't really say much because they don't really release any APS-C lenses. There was only one, I think, mentioned, which was down in the average or something, I think. But the Sigma lenses and the Sony lenses seem to be the best bet if you're dealing with these amazing lenses. Also, that Laowa, they had a couple in there which were excellent as well. So, you know, it's interesting. I mean, even if you're looking at very good, there's a few lenses in here too that you wouldn't expect. Like if you're looking at it, that the 7 Artesian 7.5mm is also listed as a very good lens. The 50 1.8 is also mentioned as a very good lens. So there are some ones out there that, you know, are interesting. Zeiss, you would expect that to be the case. You know, but it's interesting. Samyang seem to be good as well, which was surprising for a couple of lenses. Well, it's not surprising because I've used them and they are quite good. It's just focus tends to be an issue with those lenses. But overall, it seems to be that Sigma and Sony are the best too, and that the best one that they're saying, the sharpest lens for APS-C is the Sigma 56mm, this one. So they're saying that's the sharpest lens that you can get for APS-C cameras. So if you wanted pure sharpness, that's it. So interesting. So that's that news story. I'll come back to questions and that in a minute. I just want to keep going. What are we on now? 1:04:20. Let's go to this next story, which is, I just wanted to show this because this is giving now an accurate representation of what the, let me just move this over a little bit, of what the 130, the 70 to 180 looks like. if you're dealing with size. You can see it's exactly the same build quality as the other lenses. And the build quality, guys, is outstanding on these lenses. Excuse me. It is really good. Cheers, by the way. Yeah, it is really good. I mean, like I said, the lenses I use from Tamron are as good as the day that I've got them. They really are outstanding. But it's here that this is what interests me, is the size difference between the GM. Now, remember, I'm all about, even though I love carrying around the 135, I put up with that weight due to the fact of, you know, how much I love that lens. But if I had the choice for carrying something around for the whole wedding, and events, I would prefer to carry this Tamron than I would for the 70 to 200 GM. Massive difference in size. Yes, there's compromises. There's no internal stabilization in the lens. But with IBIS already built into the cameras nowadays, it's not really an issue anymore, really, as long as your camera has IBIS. And it may be that you just put your shutter speed up a touch. I mean, but I've never really had to worry about that. I'm comfortable with just using IBIS in the cameras. But the weight alone on this is a winner for me for something like weddings. And that's why I'm certainly thinking about getting rid of my 70 to 200 f4 when things pick up to get the 2.8. This would be a great lens to, say, be doing dance concerts in and stuff like that. So that's looking at it overall. But there is a review here that you can check out, and I'll leave this link down below so you can check it out. And it's showing the difference between the two. You can see it's even smaller than the f4 version. And I like the f4 version over the G Master for that reason alone. So this is even improving it more, and it's lighter, and also it's the 67mm filter, which means I've got the same filter thread as everything else I use. But this German YouTuber did a review. Like I said, I'll stick it down below if you want to go and check it out. He's saying for Sony, the advantages are that the Sony feels more solid, but I think that might feel more solid, but I've found the Tamrons are incredibly robust. Like I've said, when we were in the US, Jerry dropped his 17 to 28 on the ground, and it bounced. He dropped it from a reasonable height. Jerry's a tall guy. He dropped it from a reasonable height, and it bounced down the road, basically. And he picked it up, and there wasn't a mark on it, and it's still working fine. So even though the Sony does feel more robust, I think that the Tamrons are made just as well to last. The Sony has a tripod mount, yes. So if you do use a tripod mount, that could be an issue. I very rarely ever use that, though. Sony has internal focusing. Sony has in-lens stabilization. I'm not sure that really matters that much as long as your camera has IBIS. Sony has more buttons. Yes, that can be an issue if you like to use the programmable buttons, that's for sure. Sony has more reach, 200 versus 180, better flare resistance. And then he said the Tamron advantages are, the Tamron is sharper. I think that means sharper in the corner. I use the, like I said, I use the Tamron 180, 70 to 180 at WPPI when in Vegas, and I was astounded how sharp that lens is. So stay tuned. I'll let you know fully when I get the lens to review, and I will get one from Tamron Australia. So stay tuned. Eventually I'll get one and I'll do a full review, and I'll always tell you the truth like I always do. I'm not sponsored by Tamron. Stay tuned for that. But from what I was seeing in the camera at Vegas with the A7R4, it was outstanding. I mean, outstanding in sharpness. Let me just come back to this. In fact, the Tamron reps said you're going to be surprised how good this is. And even the Sony reps that I was talking to were surprised when I spoke to them at WPPI about it. The Tamron seems to have better light transmission. So it's got about a third of a stop faster in terms of real world T-stops. So it looks like it's better than what the GM is if you're dealing with T-stops. That's usually what videographers use for the true light transmission that's coming into the lens. It focuses close, 85 centimeters versus 96. That can be a big advantage if you like to shoot closer to things. So that is a big advantage. Tamron is a lot cheaper. The Tamron is lighter. It will be way lighter. And the new autofocus system works very fast in both stills and video. It was super quick. Probably the quickest Tamron lens that I've used. And I already find the 28 to 75 is a very fast focusing lens, but the 70 to 180 was super fast. So I just wanted to share that story with you. Last couple of stories, and then I'll open up to chat. What are we on? 109.55. All right, so last couple of stories. This is just a rumour that's first out. They're saying the Laowa 0.95 FE lens will arrive in 2021. So nothing this year, but I would say that's going to be a commonplace anyway for this year. But it looks like it's, that they're going to announce one. There is also the 50 0.95 lens. That's up to version 3 now. That you can get for $800, but this could be a real beautiful lens if you like Laowa lenses, and we just saw in that list particularly that they are very sharp lenses. Looking forward to it. I'd love to have a try of it, but obviously it's going to be a manual focus lens, but I just thought I'd share that rumour with you as well. And the last one, before we open up to a little bit of Q&A, 10... is this, and I just thought I'd share this because it really interests me. That Final Cut, if you do, now that we're all in lockdown, it might be a great time if you have Macs. Now, this is going to be no good for you if you've got a PC, obviously. But if you have a Mac, Apple have extended the free trial of Final Cut X Pro to 90 days. So you're going to have 3 months that you can use this program without paying for it. It's all I use for video editing, and I love it, absolutely love it. I did try Premiere for a while. I was Final Cut, then I went back to Premiere, and then because I'm using a Mac, I just didn't like the way Premiere works, and I found it very slow to be playing back 4K footage and things like that. On the Apple particularly, 4K footage is seamless, and it's like going through butter, hot knife through butter if you're dealing with 4K footage using Final Cut on a Mac. So if you did want to learn it, you can get it now free for 90 days. Obviously after that it will stop functioning, but by that time you have probably made your decision whether you'd like to go ahead with it and use it or not. But I just thought I'd share that with you. There's also a 90-day free trial of Logic Pro as well if you wanted to do music recording as well. That's what I've used for my music recording as well. But just thought I'd share that with you. I love Final Cut, but that's really all I'm going to say about that at this stage. So let's open up to Q&A. 1:12:30. So let's have a quick look at this before we finish for the day. All right, so where were we roughly? Yeah, we were down here actually. So let me just see what people are saying. Smart said, I just bought the, is it Takina 14 to 20 f2 for APS-C to go with my 35 to 150 Tamron on my full frame body. The Takina lens is awesome under the radar lens. Interesting, thanks for sharing that. I've never used that lens. If I could not work this year, I have to photograph my shoots in 2021 with a Fisher Price camera. Oh, I love that. That's good. Thanks, Mike. That gave me a bit of a laugh. Sid said, Ike, if you are counting the Z series, you are right. It's up to 4. The last digital SLR lens was the Phase Fresnel or FL, sharp and very fast glass. Mark said, yeah, Brett, for the Facebook sales groups are going nuts at the moment. Yeah, I can imagine. That's why I'm trying not to sell anything. I may be forced to eventually, though. My mistake, Nikon has 3 70-200. Yeah, I thought it was 3, Ike. I didn't take into account that Z version. What lens do you recommend for portraits? 50 1.8 or 1.4 or 135 f2 entry level? Well, if you had the choice, I'd go for the... is that the 135 f2.8? Is that the Zeiss one you're talking about there? I'd go for the 135 if you're dealing for the ultimate portrait lens. That's for sure. But if you really can't afford to say go up to a 135, well then yeah, the 50 1.8, or you can also use the 55. I love that lens as well, the 55 1.8 Sony lens. Altrix said, I fell in love with the Sony 35 1.8. That's a great lens. The Sigma 1.4 2 is something special. That is gorgeous, that lens. Mark said, I would recommend the 51.4. That's a great lens. Brett said, especially in the Sony buy, swap and sell group in Australia. I think it's going to be everywhere though, Brett. If you look now overseas for people selling gear, that's going to be everywhere. It really will. I'd really appreciate too, guys, if you could give me a thumbs up. It does make a difference to my channel. Canon is the only company I know that does not use Sony sensors. Geraldo says, Mark, I've seen many reviews and there isn't much difference between 1.8 and 1.4. You've got to be kidding. There's a massive difference between 1.8 and 1.4. Huge. There's a difference between 1.8 and 1.4. It's not massive, but there is a big difference in how the bokeh and how the background renders. I disagree with that. There is a big difference, particularly if you were talking about 1.8 to 1.4. Massive. Sid said, this isolation sounds what AMD did when they split off their chip die making division. Foundations was split from AMD. If you're talking about Sony's Zeiss glass, then the 1.4 is much better than the 51.8. Ike said, David, I wonder which one is more profitable, the sensor or imaging, because knowing Sony, whichever one doesn't have a future will get kicked to the curb. I think you'd find that the sensor would definitely be the most profitable part of Sony, Ike. I think that would be the case because they're used everywhere. I think the Sony sensor division would be very, very profitable. Leslie said, I think this will be the death of Sony cameras. I've seen this happen in lots of industries. You're talking about how it's splitting up. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure. I bought the 600, but not sure what lens to buy. You sort of have to think about what you shoot. That's the thing. That will determine what type of lens you need to buy and also how much money you've got. All lenses are sharp. I think maybe too sharp. And that could be true, Mike, for some things as well. I love lenses with good rendering, less CA and smooth bokeh. Yep, completely understand that. Did I miss the 7180 talk? Yeah, it was only sort of a quick sort of talk about it, yes. You can go back and view it though. It'll be in the timeline down below though. Lee said, the 51.8 is good. You probably won't stay with a cropped body anyway. Save your money and get the 1.8. And this is why I often say to people, if you can afford it, go get a full frame lens. I know it's more expensive, but you can use that on your APS-C cameras. And at least if you sell your gear and go to full frame later on, you've got lenses that are usable in full frame straight away. I do always recommend that. G'day, Gerald. Jim said, go with the camera. I used the Tamron 70 to 180 lens and thought it was great. I haven't processed the photos yet. And the Sigma hunts like no other. I found the Sigma lenses aren't too bad, Ike. I'm not sure how you use them, but I found the 135 didn't hunt at all. And I also found the Sigma 105 didn't hunt at all. They were very, very comparable to what Sony had in focuses. So I'm interested how you're saying that. It wasn't what I found in my testing, and I've got videos to prove that, showing the focusing actually working. Whether you got a bad copy or something, don't know. 0007 said, I was surprised, like I want to give Sigma one more chance, but based on my results, once again, Sigma AF lets me down. Yes, we posted this video in the Facebook group, so sad, yet he is being so brave. I'm not sure what that story was. I haven't read it yet. I often don't see the stories in my group because I've got so many people follow me. I don't see the stories in there. Maybe some Meadwood help mitigate your cough. Medication, maybe, Jim. But I always go to the doctors, and all they give me is, because it's not my cough is not a chest cough. It's more like a dry cough. So it's more like like an asthma. So I'm not sure what causes, and the doctors don't know either. They give me medication sometimes, penicillin and stuff like that, antibiotics. But really, it just goes away on its own. The antibiotics don't seem to do anything. It just goes away in a few weeks. I tend to get it 2 times in the year, usually at the start of the year, and then sort of halfway or near the end of winter often is the time that I get it. Mike said, David, do you have to pee? You're so fast switching stories. No, Mike, but I'm worried my voice is going to go. I just don't think I could talk for too long because I've got this little bit of a cough. My voice starts to go, and it's even a bit raspy now. Oops. Gerald said, Photomic, my Sigma 16 1.4 lens was outstanding on my A6 500. And Dave, well, I'm using it now, and it's not hunting at all. I mean, it is really, really good. And I've always found that whenever I use that lens, I never ever have an issue with it. Say, like trying to hunt and do all this sort of stuff. It's amazing, and it really is like it's super fast on this. I mean, look, if I go like this, it's going to try and find my face. That's an issue, but it's really, really quick. Jim said, I used the Gerald's 24 Sigma, thought it was awesome, but I salivated over his 135. I loved it. Nice. Final Cut Pro for 3 months free when I'm locked in at home now. Yeah, that's right. It's a great time to learn it, Mike. So if you do have a Mac and you'd like to learn how to use Final Cut, give it a check. Which smartphone are you currently using? I'm using the iPhone 11, the latest one. The Pro Max, I think it's called, the iPhone 11. That's what I'm using. I haven't used the 30, so you may be right about that, Ike. I haven't used that lens. I think I've only tried it in the shop, and it seemed all right then, but I haven't used that fully. What else? Guy has a crop sensor camera. I'm not sure what that means. Sony isn't kicking any unit to the curb, just restructuring. All the profits still go to Sony corporate, and the folks at the top will still call the shots. Oh, he's talking about that restructuring. Carol said, can you recommend a budget-friendly continuous light for around $250 to $300. A Pro Photo 10 was amazing, but yeah, it is really expensive, Carol. The little lights are really good. Those smaller lights are really nice if you have a couple of those. There's nothing like the Pro Photo, though. That's the issue that's dealing with flash and continuous light. Some people in the chat may be able to help me. See, I'm so into the Pro Photo realm that everything I've got is Pro Photo. The only thing I would say is if you can get fairly close, then you can use all of those small lights that I've reviewed. They work quite well, and in fact, they work really quite nice. But you've got to be very, very close to your subject. There's a million things that are out there that you could probably use. Someone in the chat may be able to help Carol. But like I said, I'm so invested in the ProPhoto B10 for that I really haven't looked at using anything else in the continuous light that would be, like travel friendly. But there's so much out there that you could look at. You could say look at some YouTube videos, like search for continuous light in photography and see what comes up. Godox, someone may be able to recommend that. Langston, if he's still here, may be able to recommend some cheaper things, because Langston's very much into using the video lighting. Is there anything you could recommend, Langston, in the chat that you could comment down below? Because I'd love to see what people say about that. I've got lots of continuous light, but it's more high-ended lighting that I use that is way over $1,000, $2,000. So I've got lots of it, but it's quite expensive. Apart from those smaller lights that I use. Langston said, "I feel like feel with a sensor division, it's so they can scale up and make more money without being constrained by the internal Sony." Yeah, it probably is. There'd have to be reasons why they've done that. Also, it would protect them. Like I said, if something goes broke, they're protected. Just Gerald's talking about, they're saying Sony's move allows them to trade and make financial and capital investment decisions separately, but the profit for loss is still part of Sony's total ledger. Let me just keep going down. Torben said, full frame 51.8 is absolutely fine for beautiful portraits with great bokeh. 1.4 is magical. The sweet spot for me above is that more light, as in David has explained, for what I use anyway. Yeah, to be able to open the aperture for more light to get in can be critical at times. It just means you have to raise your ISO less. You know, that could be the difference of, say, using 3200 ISO to 6400 ISO. And there's a big difference in being able to do that, to be holding detail. So the more that you can open up your aperture, that has to help if you're dealing with low light scenarios using ambient lighting. And that's something that you've just got to think about. David, what program do you use to compress your videos? It's all done inside Final Cut Pro. So it's all done inside there. If you have central air in your home, try getting the allergy filters for small particles, or at least change the filter twice a year. Yeah, I've just got internal air conditioning in there, but yeah, the filters don't change, and I think you just vacuum them, which is I tend to do. Gerald said, wildlife shooter Mark Smith's lost his wife a few days ago. Oh no, that's awful. But he posted a video thanking all of us. Sony was the only one that made PCs as nice as Apple for the longest. That's true, actually. Final Cut free demo needs OS Mojo, I think. No, I'm running, about this Mac, I'm running, what am I running? Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, I am running that, yeah. So I think it probably does need that. Jim Penn said they have nice hardware in the Sony Vaos. For Godox users, the AD300 will be amazing. Yeah, you know, the interesting thing about that, though, Mark, is that, and this is what I'm wondering about that, though, that when I was at WPPI, I spoke to a rep there from Godox, and I think Jerry also spoke to the same rep. And I was trying to get him to sort of tell me how good the continuous lighting, that's the one that's the continuous lighting, I'm sure it was that one. I wanted to get him to talk about that aspect of it, and he wasn't interested. He basically said, look, no, this is a flash. This is not a continuous light. The flash is only there to help with that flashlight to get your focus and stuff. He wasn't enthusiastic about the continuous lighting on that at all. And Jerry will back me up on that, because Jerry had the same discussion with the reps at another time. So I'm not sure about what that's going to do. It was an interesting scenario, because I was really excited and I wanted to do a review about that and talk about that exclusively. So I'm not convinced until I see that's actually released, Mark, what that's going to give us. Yeah, and Brett, the same thing. Like I was talking to the reps about that light. So I'm not convinced it's going to be like the Profoto B10. But let's wait and see. He might have been not knowing how good the light was, but he certainly was not pushing the continuous light aspect about it at all. Hi David, what's the wide angle lens you recommend for wedding photography? The two that I like to use, 17 to 28. The Tamron lens, and the 16 to 35. I use the 16 to 35 most of the time. It's an f4 lens. Obviously, the Tamron 17 to 28 too is also an amazing lens. But I haven't got that. I don't own the 17 to 28. That's from Tamron. I've just got that on loan. So if it was me at the moment with what I own, it would be the 16 to 35 f4. I find the f4 is ample for what I do with weddings with wide angle. And plus the cost is so good on that lens. But if I was buying new from now, I would get the 17 to 28. Stay tuned for the 17 to 28. I've got a review coming up for that soon. Gerald said the Godox AD300 will be great. $499 United States dollars, a bit too expensive, but it's a variable temperature LEDs with a variable power for continuous lighting. I'm not sure if it was you, Gerald, about that, but I'm sure it was you that he mentioned it to at WPPI. It was someone that mentioned it to me as well, someone I spoke to, but the rep wasn't going on about the continuous light at all. Let me just see. But you might want to wait for that, Carol, but who knows at the moment how long it'll be before that one comes out. Profoto is really nice. I had the D1s, but now use Godox for travel. It's nice. I don't shoot lots in studios and more location with the Godox AD600s. Jimbai is probably Godox's biggest competitor. Well, they're the same light, I think, Ike. Tony said, hi guys, just checking in, hope you're all okay, just reached the second week of quarantine in Spain. Langston said, I actually like the look of some of the products, but I've not tried them. Gerald said, we posted a new video in our group showing the continuous light on the AD300. It does have variable temperature, 10 power settings, David. It does seem very good now. Okay, well, perhaps it was just that rep that was a bit, well, he may not have known about it then, perhaps, Gerald. I was only going by what he told me in that thing. So that's good. If it's like the Profoto B10 and it's powerful, it'll be really good. What about Nanlite? I haven't used them, so I'm not sure about how good they are. Sam said it is difficult to find any info about the AD300 continuous light. Can't find anything about the CRI or any lumens measurement. And that's why I'm a bit wait and see what happens with that light. Wait until you see real reviews that come out. Because like I said, that rep was not pushing that continuous light aspect at all. And that was at WPPI, so it's interesting. I'm not saying it's not going to be any good. I'm just telling you what my conversation was with him. David, does Profoto have a new trigger because you didn't like it? You said a while ago they have to make the same as the Godox trigger. No, they haven't changed anything with the Profoto triggers. And in fact, I'm having issues with the Profoto triggers. And look, and I don't know, I spoke to Profoto when I was at WPPI, and they think it's probably a mix between the Profoto and also the Sony. It drives me nuts. It's the pins in the Sony camera can cause issues. You know how inside the hot shoe, it's got pins there. After a while of using them, the pins in either the head, your head unit, your transmitter, or the pins in the hot shoe can move off a little bit, and so they don't make perfect contact. Now, for instance, my A9, just recently I had the hot shoe replaced because Sony replaced that hot shoe free of charge due to the fact there was some issues with it. Before I had the hot shoe replaced, I never had any issues with the remote, but since I've had that hot shoe replaced, the remote is having an issue setting correctly. So I almost have to sort of give it a little push to get it to fit in now. So I think it may be more Sony's issue than it is for Profoto's issue, but I just wish Sony hadn't got that system. I wish it was just like what Nikon and Canon use, in that you get rid of those pins, which can cause all sorts of issues. They can short cameras out if they get water on them, things like that. That I just wish they had the setup like Nikon and Canon do, that just use the other bigger pins, that you never have any of those seating issues on there. But no, they haven't changed anything yet in that. Thank you from Los Angeles. I think that's thank you, Joel said. Do you use your iPhone to click photos and make videos? Do you think it's... Yes, definitely. I use my iPhone for videos all the time. Carol, did you get your answer about the light? Yeah, Jim, she may be better to wait for that Godox light that's going to come out. That's in that price range that she's thinking about. Who knows when it will come out, though. I did a video about the Rove Light 600 a while back. My buddy got the same Rove Light 400s, but I haven't gotten around to any of them yet. You may, and like I said, Carol, the small lights are pretty good, but you may also want to wait for that Godox, the AD300. That could be the one for you, because you'll get the flash component of it, as well as the continuous light as well. That could probably be the way to go, I think. What else have we got? And that's about it. Gerald said 10 power settings for the LED light. That's for the Godox one that they're talking about there. Just make sure you have the trigger pushed up firmly in the front. Yeah, I have, Brett. But it's only happened since that. This is why I think it's camera specific, the issue I'm having with the Pro Photo. Because with Michael's Sony A7R4, never had an issue with the Pro Photo lights, the trigger at all. It was perfect. Before I had the A9 upgraded, never had an issue. Since I got the A9 upgraded with that new head, the new hot shoe, I'm having to almost hold it forward to get it to hit the pins. So I think there's an issue there as well. But I was talking, also the A7 III is having issues as well. So I think there's some issues there with it. And I spoke, like I said, I spoke to Pro Photo when I was at WPPI. They had some people there, some specialists, and they said they think it may be a mix between the Pro Photo and also the Sony pins that are inside the hot shoe. So it may be a mix of both of them. If I stick a dumb terminal in, like a dumb Pro Photo head that doesn't use those pins, it fires every time. But the issue then is I can't use TTL or HSS. To use HSS or TTL, you have to use the pins at the front. Like I said, I wish Sony would get rid of that whole system and just make it a simpler system like what Canon and Nikon do and everyone else does. It would be much, much better. Just Kay said, if Davey gets 100 thumbs up, everyone gets a new car. Which screw-on circular ND filter in a good budget? I've got some listed on my page. If you go down to the bottom of this chat when it's finished and check out my gear, you'll find the ND filters that I use, but they're not the cheaper ones. Freewell makes some decent ones now that are reasonably cheap. That's just about it. All right, guys, that's probably going to be for today. I think I'm going to have a coffee. Thanks so much, everyone. Stay safe. Particularly the people in the US at the moment, because you're really getting hit by that virus. So please stay safe. Think of your elders, and people that are sort of suffering. When I say the US is the worst at the moment, I think the numbers are growing faster than anyone else out there. Italy and other countries are still really terrible. So wherever you are at this time, like I said, try and self-isolate if you can. Just think of others that aren't sort of as fit as what you are. Apart from that, try and learn as many new things as you can while you're on this lockdown, like all of us are. Try to do some things that you haven't done before. Stay tuned. I will have some more videos up soon. I've got just to talk about it, I've got KNF. Yeah, thanks for that, Gerald. I have got a video review coming out of the Tamron 20mm. I've got a video review coming out of the 17 to 35 when I get around to finishing these. I've got a Narbox video coming out. I've got the tripod video coming out, which was the Peak Design tripod review as well. So there's stacks of stuff that are going to be coming out. I've got Ike's workshop that I want to share, and I've also got a video coming out of Brooke and Jade that I did while I was in the US, and I'll probably still release some USA stuff as well. So it's got stacks coming out at the moment. So apart from that, everyone, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now. Have a great weekend, everyone.